Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Town of Barnstable Board of Health. Roll call, please.
Yes, Tom Lee,
Present.
Dr. Guadagnoli,
Present.
Dr. Lesko,
Present.
Dr. Canna,
Check your mic, Sharon.
Dr. Canna,
Yeah.
John Norman,
Here,
all right, and Steve Weller.
having quorum. Under Massachusetts general laws for anybody recording this meeting is being recorded and copied on channel 18 in the town. Anyone else recording this meeting has to let the chair know. Anyone else recording this meeting? Seeing none. We'll go to the first item on the agenda. This is a variance for septic. Dan Ojala, Down Cape Engineering, representing Betty Ludke, owner 30 Wachusett Avenue, Hyannis map parcel 287-053. It's a 5,683 square foot parcel combining two septic systems for two buildings into one system. And I believe it shows on the plan one building. Good afternoon, Mr. Ojala.
Good afternoon, Chairman Norman, members of the commission, the board. For the record, my name is Dan Ojala. I'm a land surveyor and civil engineer with Down Cape Engineering in Yarmouthport, and helping Betty, who is in the audience, I believe, or at least on Zoom, with a combination of two homes into one. And it's a very small property. It's down there in the Hyannis Port, kind of a quaint little area. The properties were in before. There was a bunch of variances granted to have this little system put in here. And what we're looking to do is just to expand that and get rid of the three-bedroom that's over here and reduce the net number of bedrooms. So you can see the existing four-bedroom dwelling and three-bedroom dwelling are to be combined into one six-bedroom dwelling. So the net is a one-bedroom reduction, which we think is a very positive thing. Your staff did bring up a couple little points, which I do have a corrected plan if you want me to bring it with a proper transmittal later, or I could hand them in now. But he caught that because there's two kitchens, technically, they really do like to go to the dual compartment tank. So we're going to pull out the old tank and put in the same footprint dual compartment septic tank. So that was a good catch. And also, it was just a request. It's not absolutely required, but we put a liner in between where the water service is and the tank, just because we've got a line coming out of the D-box, pretty close to the water valve, and you don't want any cross-contamination there. So that was a request that we were happy to comply with. So the new plan, which is dated today, I can hand that in if you'd like. The variances, again, you granted quite a few before, but in this case here, we're just trying to squeeze under maximum feasible. And again, the number of bedrooms is going down, so it should not qualify as new construction. And it's a couple feet off the lot line and a couple feet off the house, but we're putting the liner in there. And it's generally just like a trench extension off the end of the septic system. So when you do the bottom area and the sidewall area, it all calculates out correctly without variance there. You could ask for a reduction in the size of the leaching, but generally that's not too smart to do, just in case you've got extra laundry and so forth. You've got the leaching capacity. So the little bit of an expansion on the field, very similar variances to what was granted before. We're doing the best we can with what we have, and it's going down by a bedroom. So we're hopeful that the board could find that those variances could be granted, and I'd be glad to answer any questions if you do have them.
Okay, thank you for that. This is a public hearing. If there are anyone from the public that would like to speak on this item, please come forward. Seeing none, we can close the public hearing. Staff report?
Good afternoon. Staff has no objections with the idea of revising the plan to show a double compartment tank. There is a concern about space on the property for future repairs, alterations, upgrades. Perhaps the board may want to, in the future, adopt a regulation with looking to the future at ADUs in the future about this issue of using up so much land for building space but not enough for upgrading your septic system. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Members of the board, any comments or questions? Tom Lee?
I spent a few hours looking at the plan this morning, and the two compartment tank is needed, and thank you for upgrading that. Yes, and the mic is on, right? Can you hear me now? I'm just saying that this morning I spent a couple hours looking at the plant, and I find that, the two compartment tank is needed for this project. And thank you, Dan, for mentioning that up front, saying that he's replacing the two compartment tank. The only thing I look at the plan is like your steps in the front is kind of closing to your leaching galley stuff. In the future, if you need to repair it, you might need to take down the stepway to replace the galley. That's an option there. So you need to know. What did you say about the water and the septic tank? You have gonna put a liner?
Yeah, it was recommended by staff that, and because we're going to replace the tank, we'll have the opportunity because we've got it opened up anyway. So once we put the tank in, we'll put an impervious 30 mil liner full height between the water line and the tank, just in case there was ever a leak. It would help protect,
Okay.
give it effectively a longer path for the water to have to get from A to B.
Because the other option is to sleeve your water pipe.
Yeah.
That's all. So, whichever is easier for you.
Yeah, I think the only reason we didn't was because there's a gate valve there, and that's tough to sleeve that,
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
absolutely, it's going well, but just don't mess it up.
I know, right? I'm shooting myself. No, the one thing I wanted to say.
Who you are first.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Betty Ludke. I'm the owner of this property. But the house in back was a full house, and it does have water service. And one of my thoughts that we haven't discussed was in abandoning this water that is exactly like you say, and using the water service that's off the Lafayette Avenue. You know what I'm saying? So that might alleviate some of the concerns. That's all I wanted to say, is there are two possibilities for water, and I understand. I remember years ago when we had that same concern. Yes, thank you.
So
Thank you
I
for your
don't-
comment.
Yeah.
But the water service problem is yours to make, your decision to make, whether you go for Lafayette or keep the existing one. I don't think we have a concern. The concern is only for when you need a proper separation for the water and the septic system. That's our concern.
Yeah, and so either way, if you grant this variance and we've got a better way, that's always allowable through staff review, so that'd be great.
Thank you.
Any other members of the board, comments, questions? I
Well,
would-
I had a few questions, but I talked to one of the members of the staff, and Mr. Ojala said the same thing, so.
Okay. I would entertain a motion then to approve the variances as applied.
So moved.
Second?
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you, Mr. Ojala.
Thank you very much. Tom, do you want these now or bring them by the office of the
Yes,
transmitter later?
I need one, granted with no
Yeah,
conditions.
get them the copies now, and then just make sure
Yeah.
the package that's delivered for permitting has them. Thank you. Moving on to the next item on the agenda, this is an innovative alternative secondary treatment unit, STU. Dan Ojala again, Down Cape Engineering, representing Susan McAllister, owner of 10 Island Avenue, Hyannis, map parcel 265-004. It's a 70,087 square foot parcel, repair of a failed septic system, proposing to install a microfast .9 innovative alternative septic system and requesting multiple variances. Mr. Ojala again.
Yes, good afternoon again, Chairman, members of the board. Dan Ojala from Down Cape Engineering. This is a neat site. It's out on Squaw Island. It's a big lot, but it is in the new NSA. You're always a little bit concerned about the estuaries and so forth. Behind it, it's near open water to the south, but it's probably a split flow. So, and then the other thing was, and we went through conservation with this, and they appreciated the fact that we were doing the STU or the IA, however you want to call it, because there's a salt marsh only about 57 feet from where the existing and proposed leaching is. We're a little bit further than the existing, so that's getting better. The only real spot to put this on the site is this high ground right here. There's a number of resource areas which the conservation looked at, and we feel we've got the best spot selected that's reasonable, and the soil's tested out at. It's a large home. It's got a great number of bedrooms. It's assessed correctly at 8 bedrooms. I would just say that the floor plans which showed an office It was used as an office for a little while. It's a nursery right now, so it is basically being used as a bedroom. And it was formerly a maid's quarters. It has its own bathroom off of it, its own little suite, no kitchen. But that's, I think, definitely qualifies as that 8th bedroom. So I think that matter, which Dave Stanton did bring up in the staff report and just questioned, was important. Just as a backstory, unfortunately, there was a septic pulled on this for 4 bedrooms back when the plans weren't really needed. It's clearly an 8-bedroom home. You look at it, it's massive. The layout hasn't changed since it was built in whatever the 30s. But that 4-bedroom was kind of a red herring. We had it approved as a 4-bedroom, and then we said, wait a second. I looked at the pictures. This isn't a 4-bedroom home. So we redid it. Darcy administratively approved the modest change to the footprint, and we're off to the Board of Health. So this is in front of you now with the variances under maximum feasible compliance for a reduction in setback. There's a dry resource area, which is a coastal bank quite close to the leaching field. It's basically right up against the edge of it. Again, this isn't a wet resource like a bordering vegetated wetland or a salt marsh that would be more sensitive. It's a dry landform, and we make the breakout grade. So I would say that it is not particularly impactful on that, but it is technically a variance. And then we're looking to reduce the lateral removal down to about 2 feet, just to reduce the footprint and keep the size of this as small as possible. We think that's modest. It's bottom area only. A lot of times when you do the 5-foot sidewall removal, it's when you're counting the side of the system where you'd be counting on some leaching from the side. So here, hopefully that would be reasonable. And then under your local regulations, the setback, the SAS to the coastal bank is also down to 0 because of that technical coastal bank, which comes up and near the flood zone, kisses the edge of the leaching field. But again, it's a good-sized lot. We're in the center of it. It's a healthy-sized home, 8 bedrooms, borne out by the correct assessors and by the floor plans. I think this is the best we can. Again, an innovative alternative systems are generally going to be required depending on, the mix of sewer versus IA systems that is chosen by the wastewater management plan of the town. My guess is out here on Squaw Island, it would take quite a bit. The houses are spaced out fairly far, and it's a long pump, so they may never get them, and maybe they would be required. But in any event, we feel that it's the right thing to do now because we had the Conservation Commission concern about it and Board of Health, and there are some sensitive embayments, so I think it's the right way to go. So we did introduce a microfast innovative alternative. We did double-check the staff report, the size of those tanks. The DEP letter, the IA permit supersedes the Title V requirement for the tank. The tank would be a little bit undersized for 8 bedrooms. But I've got an email from Mike Moreau, and we sent this over to Dave Stanton just this afternoon. It's approved through even another 100 gallons or up to 1,000 gallons is a 1,500-gallon tank right in the permit. And we got that from the installer and the J&R Sales, who represents Microfast. So I think we're okay on that one. We did add a vent. That was a catch because the leaching field is partially under the driveway. I have those revised plans if you need them. Dated today again, adding that vent. Other than that, we think it's reasonable. Glad to introduce the IA to help out with the nitrogen situation and be glad to answer any questions if you have them.
Great, thank you for that. This is a public hearing. If there's any members of the public that would like to speak on this item, please come forward. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Staff report?
The plan meets the maximum feasible compliance standards in Title V, should be approved. And also, I want to mention, Microfast has a very good history
No,
as far
can
as...
I say something? We having trouble hearing because of this machine. So
Oh.
can you speak up a little bit?
I'm sorry. Yeah, the plan, we have no objections. The plan meets the maximum feasible compliance standards in Title V. Also, Microfast has a very good history as far as removing nitrogen, long history through the county records. So we have no objections. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Members of the board, any comments or questions?
Could you go over that again, the 8 bedrooms with 760 gallons per day. And
So-
you got a 1,500 gallon septic tank.
Right. So the difference on that is, and it used to be 100%, right? When 78 code, all the way through 95, you only needed a 1,000-gallon tank for up to 6 bedrooms. They did up the tank size with the 96 code change. They went to 150% instead of 100% of the daily flow. For among some other things. So right now, on a technical matter, like if we were not doing an IA system, we'd need a little bit bigger tank. But because we're doing the IA, their official approval letter through the state says that that unit that's good for up to 1,000 gallons a day, so that covers the 880, only needs a 1,500-gallon tank. And some of it is a pretreatment compartment, some of it is a treatment unit. It's just a different, it's an apples and oranges sizing question.
But with a
So,
microfast system,
yes.
don't you have other things in the septic tank that take up part of that room too? So it makes
They
it
always do,
smaller?
right, and so, and to your point, when I do a restaurant or something and it needs, say, it's a 2,000-gallon flow and it needs 3,000 gallons worth of tanks, I'll put those upstream of the fast unit, but then what you do is you do a recycle pump that pumps back up to that tank. The way the fast just set up the bubbler where the recycle only has a short range and it is a little bit more compact tank to make it work. And so what they do is they just pump it a little bit more frequently. You know, that's how they handle it. But his exact language is if the tank in front of the fast is too large, it can limit the material from being carried into the treatment compartment, and that limits the endogenous carbon needed for denitrification. You know, if you guys absolutely insisted on it being bigger, we could do that, but at that point, we'd need a recycle pump, which just adds some complexity to it.
Tom, you people are okay with that?
Dr. Knapp, I also forgot to mention, this site is not located within any of the nitrogen-sensitive areas on the map, as was the previous case, so we have no objections to this whatsoever.
And is this property used just part of the year?
Generally speaking, but we wouldn't want to limit it to that. You know.
What do you do with a fan when it's not used? You just let it run?
Yeah, I mean, if it's truly seasonal, you kind of have them click the switch off. It saves you a few bucks in electricity. But generally, you'll want it on if you're down there for Christmas or, you know, the holidays and stuff. And generally, the biology, you know, tends to go to sleep. It hibernates pretty well. But that's what we'd do is, if it was for a long period of time, we could shut it down.
All right, thank you.
Any other comments, questions? I would entertain a motion to approve as submitted.
Oh, before that,
Nope.
we need that aeration that you mentioned about the venting system.
Yeah, I'm going to hand in the revised plan with the vent.
That'll be submitted with a testing maintenance contract from FAST.
Yes, happy to supply that with the disposal works construction permit and the O&M and so forth. Yeah, no problem.
Okay, so we had a motion to approve, a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's unanimous. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, Brian Ugasian, BSC Group, representing Hyannisport Club, 2 Irving Avenue, Hyannis, map parcel 266-031. It's a 156-acre parcel, proposed expansion of Rackets facility, requesting not to install an innovative alternative septic system.
Nobody here?
Did they continue or forget or?
Well, maybe we can try at the end of the meeting. He was anticipating coming, yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
we'll move them back to the end there then. Move on to the next item then, septic repair deadline, Paul Barron, Barron Property Management, representing Strawberry Hill Condominiums, 1431 Iona Road, Hyannis, map parcel 274-021, requesting an extension on the deadline until sewer connection. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Board.
If you can pull that mic a little bit closer to you, then just give us the rationale.
As you know, the town of Barnstable is having the sewer project going on, and Strawberry Hill falls into the Finney's Lane phase. And I was been having conversations with Kelly Copley about where we stood in the terms of hookup, sewer line hookup. And we do have a failing leaching pit, one of the buildings that we've been monitoring. We had a septic inspection done and it failed. And we, at the request of the Board of Health, that we need to have that system replaced within a year. And with the sewer line project coming on, we were asking if we can have an extension so that we can, forego extra financial burden of having that leaching pit replaced and then abandon it within a year or two after we have it installed. So we are monitoring it. We have it inspected every month, and we have Border Lottie come and pump it as needed. So we're doing our due diligence on that side to make sure there's no overflow to the exterior ground or backups into the units.
Okay, thank you for that. This is a public hearing. If there's any members of the public want to speak on this item? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Staff?
Staff has no objections. For the past 5 years, this is exactly what we recommend, that if sewer is imminent in the area, that we don't want people spending money on septic repairs. Just keep it pumped as often as necessary until the sewer connection occurs. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Members of the board, any comments or questions?
How long an extension are we talking about?
How long of an extension, Tom, do you think they need?
Well-
What is the due date for sewer in that road?
It's in the first phase, which is 1 to 10 years, so I don't know exactly. I know they were supposed to start the first connections, Strawberry Hill Road area, this past springtime, but they're 6 months behind in schedule right now. I'd have to consult with the town engineer to find out more.
We just want
Approximate
to,
date.
we just want to keep up, because, with the failed inspection, it's going to trigger, repair notification. So we just want to, do you think we should give it annual or 2-year or?
I would suggest you
You
could come
sound
back
good?
next year, or can you come back in a year? Is that
1 year,
what it-
2 years? Well, you're
We're
going to
gonna-
give me a year extension, so, I mean, to do it, I'm asking for another year extension, so.
Whatever, I'm fine with it, whatever.
Well, why don't we do a 2-year extension on the waiver to repair, and then just, notifications if there's any, if any of the sewage end up coming up out of the ground, obviously we want it taken care of immediately. And, we may have to put you onto a monitored, pumping schedule, to keep up with it, so. But, and then we'll just look for an update, and then, once sewer is available, you'd have to hook up immediately.
Right, so the pumping's going to trigger the health department to say, why is this pumping going on?
If it's, over 4 times a year, so it'll
And
be.
It will be more than 4 times.
Okay, then
So-
they'll know it when they get that letter, because they'll look under the file, and the file will show you have an extension, and that you need to be pumping in order to bridge the gap for when sewer is available.
So when I'm clear that 2025 is when I have to come back?
Yep,
Excellent.
Yep.
okay.
August
So
of,
the health department will get
Yeah.
copies of the reports, of the inspection reports?
yeah, exactly. This is what triggered, we got a failed inspection report, so we sent out an order letter, but we did say in our letter that sewer will be available in this area in the near future, that you should consider a variance. We put that in our letters. So that's why they come here and ask for these types of extensions.
How many different systems are there on that property?
4.
4 systems. That's a 2.2 acre parcel with 30 condominiums.
Yes.
How in God's name did they ever get approval in the first place to put that many?
You're asking the wrong person, sir. I have no idea.
Okay, so I would entertain a motion to approve a 2-year extension and
So
variance.
moved.
Second?
I have a motion and a second to approve a 2-year variance. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Paul? I didn't see a hand. Did you approve?
No, that's fine, I'll approve, I'll
Okay.
go. with it.
It's unanimous, thank you. Thank you for that.
Very much.
Next item on the agenda, food variance, British Beer Company, 412 Main Street, Hyannis, map parcel 309-221, requesting grease trap variance for 2,000-gallon grease trap. Menu items have low level of grease, asking for same seating as prior owner, 197 seats. Good afternoon, Mr. Kenny.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the Board of Health. For the record, my name is John Kenny. I'm an attorney with a law office in Centerville, and I come before you this afternoon representing Dublin Inc., or Dublin LLC. I almost always say this evening because I'm so used to being here at night. With me today is Desmond Keogh, one of the principals of Dublin LLC. They bought the British Beer Company actually 5 weeks and 2 days ago. And after buying it and spending a significant amount of money to acquire the property, they started making renovations to the property to the tune of $60,000 have been spent in renovations, commitments for another $15,000 up to $75,000 in additional renovations need to be made. The property was basically, for the last number of years, been kind of absentee ownership. It's become quite run down. So my client bought it. He started to upgrade it and really started to invest some money in it. But it was a lot of money invested up front to buy the property. After acquiring the property, he was informed that he needed to come in for a variance. Apparently, there's a prior variance for the grease trap. And he was told he needed a variance, otherwise there would be an almost 40% reduction in the number of seats that he could have. There are 217 seats, 197 outside, inside and 20 outside that are authorized. And when we did the transfer of the liquor license, it's the 217 that was stated on there, and the prior permit, food establishment permit to the prior owner had the same thing, 197 seats and 20 inside and 20 outside. Then we received the notice that you got to come here for a variance or put in a new grease trap. And it is, under the calculations, it would be a 39% reduction in seats, a total of 84 seats because we only have a 2,000 gallon grease trap. I asked a couple of engineers. They said minimum 15 grand, depending upon, I believe the system's out back, yeah, in a walkway, but he said a lot of the utilities come in out back there, so it's unclear. I just asked for a ballpark, and I was told minimum 15 grand, probably more. So we're asking for a variance, and I understand that it's not going to be a permanent variance from feedback I've had from staff, et cetera. But we'd like a variance for 3 years to allow my client to continue to reinvest in this property, and then put in a second grease trap or a larger grease trap. I don't know how it would be engineered. That would be something we would have to look at. In support of that, this is a pub. It's not a restaurant that turns its tables over 3 or 4 times serving food and creating a lot of grease. It's a pub. Yeah, people go there to eat, absolutely. But people also go there, play trivia, or maybe have an appetizer or some popcorn and do whatever. It's a place to socialize as opposed to many of the restaurants up and down Main Street. So I would suggest to you, based upon the use, we are producing less grease than a restaurant that is looking to overturn their tables, turn their tables over 2 and 3 and whatever number of times they can do. So I asked that. I just ask you to consider the situation my client's in. He never would have paid the price he paid for this property had he known there's a potential of a 40% reduction in seats. That's his income base. If you were going to buy a business and told before you bought the business that we're going to reduce your sales by 40%, you wouldn't pay what the asking price was. So, and I don't blame anybody, but I would just suggest that the town look at the policy. When I was contacted by DPW, I said, what triggered this? And he said, well, was there a change in use? I said, no. He said, change of ownership? I said, yeah. He said, well, that would trigger us to review it. I said, well, why are you reviewing it after the sale? It makes no sense, and it's creating without a variance, or at least some time, it could put my client under, quite frankly. It's a 40% reduction in his sales. So we're asking for that in support of it. We don't think that there's a significant environmental danger here with the grease, given the type of use. I don't know how long the situation has gone on. Tom, you may be able to answer that, but I don't know when the first variance was granted. I just, frankly, found out about this variance request yesterday. My name's on the application, but my client was informed he needed to apply for the variance. I was out on vacation and had family in, and found out yesterday that we were going to be having this hearing today, so I apologize for some of the lack of information. But I think you kind of get the picture here, And I'm hoping you can give us 3 years to either increase the size of the grease trap by installing a new one or installing a second one. We haven't even begun to engineer that. I'd be happy to answer any questions the board may have.
Thank you for that. This is a public hearing. If there's any members of the public wish to speak on this? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Staff?
Good afternoon. I believe it was 2009, to answer your question, when the first variance was granted, or when the previous variance was granted to the previous owner for this number of seats. The Board of Health did grant that variance. The Board of Health has been requiring GRDs for many restaurants in town to make up for the difference. Grease recovery device, which is a box that goes under the sink in the kitchen. And the problem with that over the years, some people are good at maintaining those and some are not. And DPW doesn't look kindly based on some history they've had with lack of maintenance. So that's because it's a town on town sewer pipes and goes into our town's wastewater treatment facility. DPW has taken a stance in requiring properly sized grease traps. And I don't know if all the board members received the email today from the DPW that suggesting the board deny this request for a variance, that the options are to go back to 133 seats or put in the larger grease trap. But in the bottom of the letter, they do suggest that it would be okay to grant a 6-month extension because we're in the middle of the busy summer right now. So that's the DPW's recommendation, which is different than how the health staff has made recommendations in the past based on the previous board members that we've had that have allowed other accommodations like a internal grease recovery device to make up the difference.
We do have one.
And you do have one? Okay.
Yes.
So sorry to leave you with so much information, but it puts us in a tough position for these types of requests. A 3-year extension, I think, may be too long, in my opinion, for this sort of thing, but maybe 18 months would be more reasonable. Pardon me?
Just help me understand more about the grease recovery device.
Grease recovery device, Big Dipper, for example, from Thermoco. They came to a presentation to the board many years ago. It's a metal box about this large, and it has a mechanical. It's plugged in, so it's mechanical, and the wipers actually put the grease, and you put a bucket at the, and it wipes the grease into a bucket,
Off the top
and then they take that to the dumpster. Yeah, and they work very well. It was over 90% effective if it's maintained properly. If eventually the wiper blade will wear out, parts wear out, they have to be replaced. And so the problem has been lack of maintenance, and that's DPW just wants the proper cement grease trap in the ground, properly sized and pumped out in accordance with the quarterly 4 times per year.
My client pumps 4 times a year now. They have a grease recovery device. I don't know the information on when that's cleared. I guess it's done at the same time as the system is done. I mean, how generous of DPW to offer 6 months? Are they offering financing also? I mean, a 40% reduction. I'd like to go over there and tell them I'm going to reduce their staff by 40%, and you got 6 months. It's ridiculous.
Okay, hold on. Let's let's also remember that when people are buying properties, they should do their due diligence and research all permits, all zoning, all variances on a property before they enter a property. So that's twice you kind of dug at the town. So I'm just going to stop you there, Mr. Kenny.
I'm not blaming Board of Health.
You're digging at DPW, 40% reduction. We don't need to go there. Okay?
We're not challenging the
Let's
science or anything.
Let's keep it all nice. Be nice.
Yeah, well,
Be
it's
nice, Mr.
it's
Kenny.
simply
I
the
understand,
process.
but there's
And-
also due diligence on whoever representative before the sale to make sure he did all that and found out beforehand, making an offer on a property before doing your due diligence.
I
So
did not handle
we
that,
understand
but I will say this: I've never checked with the Board of Health for grease traps, quite frankly. And we did do I did the liquor license, and the numbers that are here tie into the liquor license, and it was approved.
Yeah, that's not DPW and that's not grease traps. That's just, number of seats and then the liquor license passes on top of that. But
I made a note to check
But
for grease traps in the
zoning
future.
variances, septic variances, all that is all on record. It's all public record. It's not hidden somewhere. Someone just needed to do the due diligence and go look and ask. So, but no more digging. Okay. So, any members of the board, comments or questions?
Yes, I'd like to know how this property was granted a variance from 2009 for that many extra seats.
So what Tom was saying was is that back then, they used to allow a remote grease removal system under the sinks.
Yeah, okay.
But to bridge the gap.
Right,
So you'd say,
and-
okay, here's where your tank outside is supposed to recover
Sure.
this amount. If you can put this system inside, under the sink, between the two of them, it's doing the recovery. The
Yes.
problem came is that this unit has to be plugged in, it has to be maintained, and they were finding that people weren't maintaining them, they weren't taking care of them. And so DPW, who is in charge of the sewer
Yes.
systems, has said no more. And we've also heard from the building inspector through the plumbing inspector that, no more.
When did
Oh,
that
speak through.
change?
Was it,
From DPW, when did they change their position on these
Oh, not
grease
too long
traps?
ago, in the past 3 or 4 years, I want to say.
yeah.
So I would say, while it is the owner's responsibility to understand all the variances, if he had a variance on the property from 2009 saying that it works with this extra grease trap, it would take, I'm not quite sure how you would come to determine that that was no longer allowed by the town. You'd have to research, you would have had to speak to someone specifically and say, hey, is this variance still good? Because we still have the grease trap under the sink. And it's been used since 2009, and somebody would have had to tell him, oh, that's no longer allowed. We changed that just 3 years ago, and by the way, we changed it 3 years ago, and we did not go to the British Beer Company 3 years ago and say, you have to decrease your seats now.
We wouldn't, because it's not a change in use or a change in ownership.
Well, right, so,
So the
but
variance
that's
stays with the ownership.
that's on us.
Can I-
We should have changed, I'm just saying, when we're talking about responsibility of the
Right.
property, it's not,
The variance letter
there's
says,
some responsibility to the town there as well. We've allowed the British Beer Company for 3 years to use a system that DPW does not want to be used. And this gentleman came in and brought the property, and he would probably assume that that variance would be approved.
the variance is not transferable to another owner or operator. We put that on the
I
bottom.
understand what triggers it. I'm
Tran-
just saying
yeah.
that I have great sympathy for
Right,
him
yeah.
because
Yeah.
you could make an argument like, geez, maybe things, when a property comes up for sale, maybe that should trigger things, not after the sale. Because we see this happening all the time. People buy a house, they're like, what, it's not a 4-bedroom?
Well,
You know?
that goes to, let's say you
Yeah.
have a granted variance through your
Right.
property or an easement
Yes.
through your property.
Yes.
And if your closing attorney doesn't do their due diligence and research it and doesn't represent to you all of these things like, okay, you're buying this property and I just want to let you know it's got this, it's got this, it's got this. And one of those might be a use variance. So if you change the use, the variance goes away. If it's if it's a permit or a variance that was issued to an owner and there's a change in ownership, that goes away. So that's what triggers it. I understand the argument, say, well, how do you
Yes.
do it beforehand? The closing attorneys representing the owners.
Right.
That the owners pay to have you show me all these things that are, is this, should I move forward with purchasing this business? If the town changed the zoning and didn't allow restaurants on Main Street, Hyannis, they're grandfathered in until a change of ownership or change of use.
Right.
That would trigger it, that type of thing. So, believe me, I'm sympathetic too, because this is stuck between a rock and a hard place. But like I've been very consistent is that if it was a private property and this was a septic system or grease trap that pumping into his own leach facility, have at it.
Right,
The
I
burden's
understand.
on you.
Sure.
But we have been asked by DPW to say, look, we have to maintain these lines. We have to maintain these sewer lines. We're expanding the sewer at great expense.
Yeah.
We want to limit as much as possible grease getting into the system because grease in the system causes 2 a.m. clogs, which causes entire
Absolutely.
neighborhoods to back up. So
Right.
that's what they're saying to us is that please don't approve any more of these without consulting us. So we've said, we want to hear from you and let us know. So they've let us know that they would prefer we don't. We don't have to. We can still grant it.
Right.
But I always personally, I'm just one vote. I
Yeah.
tend to defer to the DPW. Now,
I agree,
We
yeah.
can negotiate and say, well, DPW is saying they understand the situation, middle of the summer. How about a 6-month granting? Maybe we give them a year and a half. They are asking for 3. Maybe we, so let's negotiate.
Let's
One way or
negotiate.
another, this
Okay.
property has to, you do one of 2 things. Either upgrade to a bigger septic tank or reduce the number of seats, because
Yes.
long after we're long and gone, they're still gonna be hooked up to a town sewer system that
Yep.
affects everybody that's connected to that system. So I think, that's where I'm leaning, but I'm willing to listen to anybody's suggestions. Maybe offer a year and a half variance, maybe offer a 2-year variance, I don't know. Maybe offer no variance.
If you got a
But-
6-month variance, how about we ask the applicant to contact the DPW and see if the grease recovery trap gadget could be used, and report what they find from the what happens with the grease recovery, and talk with the DPW. In other words, get them the history of the grease trap, reports to the DPW.
Well, just from my conversations with them is that ends up like access into the property. Now you're putting the burden on DPW to do interior inspections of whether these interior units are being maintained, and they said they don't want to be involved in that because.
Isn't there somebody that can examine that and like we had earlier, somebody examined the septic system up on Strawberry Hill Road and reported that we got the copy of that here. Couldn't they get something like that, or someone would inspect?
Yeah, perhaps Thermocoat Company can send a rep down to check that.
I mean, at least try it, because,
Yeah.
I mean, we can't oversee,
Well, I think the bottom line is that eventually, the variance is going to expire. And either a totally new board, or that we'll be here all of us the same, it'll be 3 years from now, we're going to have to look at it again.
Yep.
But eventually, DPW is asking us to do away with all these variances, make everyone come up to the code, make the grease, as little as possible. Now, there's things we can do. We can say, instead of the normal quarterly grease pumping, we're going to ask you to do monthly grease pumping. We're going to ask you to do bi-monthly grease pumping to keep up with it, plus the combination, so, I'm open to listen to anybody that wants to make a motion to try and, come to some sort of agreement, and then see if the applicant wants to go by that.
One other question?
I'm sorry, Dr. Guadagnoli had his hand up.
The grease recovery device, what happens to the grease from that? Is it
It
pumped?
goes into a little
Bucket, they
bucket
dump
and they dump it in the trash.
So there's no way of monitoring that? That's done
No.
locally?
Right, that's the problem, is that people were unplugging them and not.
It's done locally, okay.
Are you using the grease recovery trap now?
Yes, and outside is a huge tank where they pour it. They don't just dump it, it's a containment tank that holds it. So when they come to pump out the grease tank itself, they take the other grease that's from the grease recovery.
so then you have a record.
You have a record and you have a volume. So we could require.
You have no problem using that for now?
Pumping of both
Well, they do it now.
Just need time.
on
Got
a
it.
monthly basis with a report back, and then DPW wouldn't have to go out, or on a every other month basis, or something like
Right,
that.
right.
DPW wouldn't have to go out. We could have evidence that the pumping is being done. If the amount of grease goes down, I mean, British Beer's been here for a long time.
Right, they'll have
It should be a relatively steady amount of grease.
history, yeah.
Yeah. And we should be able to make ourselves comfortable that things haven't changed and grease isn't just being thrown out or going down the drain.
Tom, Lee?
You guys are talking about a lot of the information's out there, and I'm sitting down here and trying to digest all this stuff. There's a couple of things I just want to float out there. Number one, your grease trap recovery, a lot of people does not trust it, but in this case, you have been using it, or the British Beer Company has been using it. So I think, having a third party come and do an inspection, make sure the system is working, and give us the report on that one. And then if you are doing it pumping, you would have the record, either if you do it every 2 months, depending on what the grease quantity is. And you have to have a reliable, grease removal contractor coming and remove the grease. Because I have seen, those grease removal guys, they're not pumping the grease, they're just pumping the water. So you have to be sure that you have a good, reliable grease removal contractor to use.
The person that does it now is the same company that's been doing it for years.
It's
They leave the tank.
Pure Flow out of Middleborough.
Who?
Pure Flow, P-U-R-E.
Well, I mean, I don't know the company, but usually, when I'm working, on my side, on my client side, I usually go and look, how are they doing it, pumping it? Is it good? Not good? You make the recommendation. You say, no, this is not good, or this is good. Then you passed. But I would give you at least, let's say, a year extension to give you some time to prove the system is working on the grease recovery system, to give us some more comfort in terms of that, and then also give time for the DPW and to understand how you're operating the system.
We're happy to eventually get rid of the GRD and upgrade the system. It's time and money. And just a couple of things. I've been practicing law for 40 years, and I do a lot of real estate, and I can't ever recall seeing a grease trap variance on record. I don't think we record them, do we, Tom?
Right, they have not been recorded registry of deeds, but they do have that sentence in the bottom, it's not transferable to another
Yeah,
owner
but-
or operator.
So, I mean, maybe we ought to start recording them. That would
Yeah.
really put
Yeah,
people
I
on
should
notice.
say.
I'm just trying to help solve the problem as opposed to
Yeah.
coming in here screaming again sometime.
Yeah,
The other thing is, obviously, I mean, to get Dan Ogier to go design our system, it's going to take 6 months to get Dan, to get the engagement letter to get us going. I mean, the good engineers are that busy. It's going
Yeah,
to take.
no, I think there's a general feeling up here that DPW asked for 6 months. I think there's a general feeling up here, and I'm not going to speak for anyone else, that we're in the year and a half, 2 year range. Keep
that's where I was going.
increase the, keep monitoring the grease. If we see an increase, bump up the amount of pumping you have to do. And, look, we want to work with the business community too. We're not looking to hurt anyone. We're just, we aren't going to get the phone call at 2 a.m. when the line clogs. So there's a tremendous amount of, empathy here for the DPW and their staff that have to respond to a clogged line full of grease. So we're just trying to eventually get you off the lower number, into a bigger tank, off of the remote unit, and so we can just get everyone up there, but we want to work with you. What is the general feeling up here?
Mis-
My
Mr. Chairman.
opinion that agreement should be between them and the DPW, not the Board of Health, because we really aren't, we don't own the sewer system.
Right, I mean, I've made that argument, but unfortunately Mass DEP is keeping
Us and the-
grease
But I mean, I
grease
think
tanks under our
this-
purview. We've asked for that.
Mr. Chairman, the other,
If-
I'm sorry.
These
Well, if-
people and the DPW,
if it was a- yeah,
not us. We don't own.
If it was
I
a
mean-
brand-new installation, then yeah, DPW would be the one,
I mean,
putting
they
the
got
engineering.
a 6-month variance already. That's already granted according to that letter that Tom got.
No, that was
They
suggested.
recommend.
No, that's what they recommend.
no, that's the DPW in their
Yeah,
letter of
so-
recommendation.
They can't grant, we grant.
Right, so,
Right.
but I mean, they've agreed to that.
Right, they've agreed to the concept, or just arguing the terms?
Yeah. And Mr. Chairman, that's what I wanted the second point I wanted to offer was I'd back off the 3 and just ask for 2 years. My client informs me he financially should be able to do it and get it done within the 2 years.
Anybody have any,
Question was financially what?
is everyone pretty comfortable with that?
Yes.
I-
Not me, I'm not.
Okay,
2 years puts you right in the middle of summer again, though, so that's why maybe give them a couple extra months, but it's
2 years and
3 months or something.
2 years and 3 months?
That would be wonderful. Thank you,
That puts
Tom.
you into
Appreciate that.
October? Okay. So that would be 27 months? I would entertain a motion then to grant the variance for 27 months.
So moved.
Second?
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
It's 4 opposed? 1 opposed, Sharon?
Okay, do we have is there a condition or no about the mountain
No.
pumping or? Okay.
No.
Thank you.
So 4 and 1 opposed.
Okay.
You have your variance. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate the help.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is Robert Weeks, Rawbar, 213 Ocean Street, Hyannis, map parcel 326-035. Variances from Federal Food Code requesting allowance to put shucking stations behind the bar. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. We have shucking station behind the bar already. And the health department said that we had to come and talk with you for a variance to have it behind the bar. So I'm just trying to find out what you guys are looking for.
Okay. Well, this is a public hearing. If there's any members of the public want to speak on this item? Seeing none? Close the public hearing. Staff, you want to fill us in on what's going on?
Sure, yeah. Health Inspector Mary Beth McKenzie has been working closely with the personnel at this food establishment. The problem is it's outdoors, essentially. It's outdoors, if you're not familiar, it's across from the docks. There's a hotel there, and if you go up the steps, it's like an open area. So to have food service that's not protected, not covered, not without proper walls, ceilings, screens, et cetera, it requires multiple variances. There is another place that this was approved for many years ago behind the Black Cat on Ocean Street as a pilot program. The Board of Health, back then, Dr. Miller was was on the board, Dr. Caniff. It was granted as a pilot. And since that time, as many years ago, we haven't had any other requests since then. So we have no objections to this request as long as he provides all the same requirements as, for example, the powerful fan that's supposed to keep the flies away from the food.
All right.
Things like that. But we have no objections to this request.
Now, I want to get it straight in my head for logistics purposes. You're reaching into an ice, usually, I mean, from what I've observed, they reach into an ice chest, they pull out an oyster, a clam, whatever, and they shuck it right there. They put it on a plate and they serve it to you. So, like, what is the protection it needs from flies and normal? I mean, normal food prep, I'd agree, but it's like basically a food thing that's in a suit of armor that you snap open and
Yeah.
put it on a plate and then it's served immediately. It's not like it's not like they shucked hundreds of them and then just let them sit on the counter.
Right, that's a good point.
It's just as people order, am I wrong?
We shuck to order.
Right, I mean, at most
And,
places I've been to, it's like,
they're in a,
order a half dozen oysters, they shuck
Yeah,
them right in front
we
of you.
have a insulated stainless steel with a drain on the bottom that goes right into the drain underneath, right? And that's got a screen on it to catch all the shells. And it's covered on top. Mary Beth wants me the hinges are a little rusty. We're going to replace those hinges. But I didn't want to do anything till I talked to you. And basically that's it. Everything's shucked to order. So if you come in and want oysters, they got to open up the top, take the oysters out, shuck them, put them in a dish, and off they go. Oysters, clams, and we have we changed the water bucket where we keep the tools like every 2 hours. We'll pour that water out, put fresh water in, so the tools are not, being contaminated. Everybody wears gloves.
So Tom, what were some of the other requirements that they were talking to needed?
Well, yeah, someone at your office filled out this variance request, said it says to open the raw bar behind the bar. You said it's already open, but this says to
No,
open.
it's not open. We don't use it. We're shucking in the kitchen right now.
Oh, okay. And then on the second page, they list the variances. There's surface variances, floors, walls, ceilings, outer openings, and exterior walls and roofs. I don't know you have all this information? There are four federal code variance requests in that attachment. And then someone named Robert Weeks, is that?
That's me.
Yep, wrote a nice letter applying for the variance. And so, yeah, we have no objections to this. The risk may be very low based on how it's described. And plus, we have a pilot program at another location, and we have had no complaints or issues at that location for many years. So
if the variances are granted, you're going to move the shucking operation to outside behind the bar?
Well, it'll be behind the bar, yeah.
Right. And you're aware of what they're looking for and you're fine with all that?
Yeah. What, I mean, what are you looking for? That's what I wanted to know.
Oh, just make sure you have the high-powered fan, you have the,
So you, so
the
there,
rough wood is sealed, that's not sealed. Mary Beth came down and talked to you already, right? About
Right.
what needs to be done. Right.
So can she go talk to him again?
Yeah, oh, yeah, certainly. She can go again.
so you do want the fan. That's what I was trying to figure out. Last
unless-
year, I was sick last year,
Oh, okay.
so I wasn't here. You know, I was in the hospital for like 6 months. And I knew that the shucking had moved into the kitchen, but I didn't know why.
Well, an alternative, you don't need a fan if that front deck is screened in. I don't know if you have it screened
Right,
in. or-
okay, so we will need the fan because we're not screened in.
Yeah, okay. Just to keep the flies away is the reason why the
So
board
it's more,
required.
it would be more like the fan would be more
For insects, yeah.
like an air curtain.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Just over
Come
the,
ag-
just
you
over the
come
food
again,
prep
bring
area.
Yeah,
some
just
sand.
blowing right over that area that.
Just in the food prep, just in where they're, just in the
Just
area
where they're
they're
shucking, I'll have a
The whole
fan.
bar doesn't have to be.
No,
blown.
right, no, just in
Just
that area.
Yeah, you can get one that's, if you want to look at the black, or we can send you a picture.
Yeah, the Black Cat.
Black Cat
the
has
same
one,
thing.
it's about this big around, it's very powerful, and it goes right on that shucking area, keeps the flies away.
Okay. Yeah, we got a
Okay.
plug underneath there, we can do that.
Everyone on board? Yep. Okay. All right, thank you very much. I'd entertain a motion to approve the variances and for the raw bar.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
That's unanimous. Thank you so much for your time.
All right,
Appreciate it.
thank you.
This next item on the agenda is approval for a septic installer, new license, Tyler Gilman, South Dennis. Sharon did all of his, passed the test and all of his references check out.
Yes, he made out fine, so.
Okay. Any comments or questions, board members?
No,
Entertain a motion to issue a license.
So move.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to issue the license. All those in favor?
Aye.
That's unanimous, Sharon. Thank you. Next item on the agenda, body artist, new Rosalina Martins, body artist at Brazil Touch Salon and Day Spa. Did they reschedule or cancel, or?
No, just spoke to,
I didn't think
associate
Councilor
today,
Starr was
so-
getting his license, so. Career change.
no, yeah, I just spoke to them again today, and they did, I did receive the 4C certificate of the course they
maybe
took
she didn't
online.
receive that.
Did she need to be here, and now that you have the paperwork, is it just
Um,
us?
It's the same course. I was wishing she was right here, so she hung up.
Yeah, the only question I have is, our regulation requires not only the training, but also an exam. It specifically says an exam, and I'm not sure if this one has an exam attached to this self-taught tutorial, self-paced tutorial is what it says.
We've seen Save Each Life before, though, haven't we?
Well, this is not Save Each Life. Save Each Life has an exam, because I've called them directly, but I don't know, this is Cape Cod Community College. I don't know if part of the certificate involves an exam. Does anybody
What
recall?
college do you know of that doesn't do exams?
Well,
Yeah, it was listed as a
Okay.
4-credit, though, yeah. So
So if it-
that would
if
leave it
it-
to definitely.
if it's something that we've approved, I wasn't sure.
Yeah, we don't meet again for another month. There's no sense holding her up. I mean,
Okay.
if we approve it and for some reason, Sharon, they bring in the paperwork and it doesn't meet, then don't issue it and tell them they gotta come back. But otherwise, I would think it's pretty
Okay.
straightforward. Anyone have
That
any
sounds
objections to that?
reasonable.
Then I entertain a motion to issue the new license.
So move.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
That's unanimous, Sharon.
Yes, thank you.
And review of the minutes. Did you get
I'm
those
not-
sent out? No. You know,
No, so
As is our typical annual July after the June expiration of 1 year, it's the election of officers for the chairman and the vice chairman. The floor is open for any nominations.
Nominate
wants to
John
be
Norman to be
chairman?
chair.
Does
Okay.
anybody want to be chairman?
I'll do it again.
Tom?
Sure. No, let John run the chair.
Okay, any nominations for vice chair? I nominate Tom Lee, if you want to do it again.
Sure.
Okay, so we have a nomination for chair, John Norman. All those in favor? That's unanimous, and we have a nomination for Vice Chair, Tom Lee. All those in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you very much. We continue to keep on the agenda the policy for draft deadline for connecting to public sewer buildings. We're still working on that item. And we also, I think we got a final answer from DPW. They are not into our proposed temporary tank thing. So we'll probably remove that from the agenda and just go along the lines of granting variances and letting people pump.
What is the deadline to connect?
For sewer,
What's the deadline?
it's typically, what, 6 months?
We proposed 6 months in this new proposed policy, but the board hasn't adopted it yet.
What does the DPW want?
They prefer 6 months. The previous Board of Health had a formula, remember, based on the age of your septic system, they had a formula. But this is much tighter deadline, 6 months.
Yeah, and I think DEP is 6 months. Mass DEP is 6 months, right? As soon
not
as
sure.
sewer is available in front of your property, you have 6 months to hook up without local variance approval.
So they're not interested in tight tanks? If somebody's gonna be, building a new house, say, like there's a new big house going up on Finney's Lane.
Yeah, that's a good
and that-
example, yeah.
I mean, Tom had conversations, Tom Lee reached out to DEP and asked them for an opinion on it.
Yeah.
And
And they
They
say,
don't wanna let them use a tight tank?
No.
So what is someone in a house like that, have to put a septic system in?
yeah,
And then connect.
it made sense to me, like, well,
I
it's just
hope that's not a misunderstanding.
no, we represented it to them and said, in this scenario, if you have a new construction permit on a property that is 24 months away from having sewer in front of it, can't we just let them hook up to a tight tank and then hook up to sewer when sewer's available? And
they say no.
they said no.
They want us to also just put up blockades on the highways in Massachusetts.
And they'd blow up the bridges, and we got ours, and I know,
No,
it just doesn't make any
I'd
sense.
like to talk to them about that,
It's,
We'd love to have you talk.
we
Yeah.
because I didn't think I was on that DP Public Works Commission for 16 years.
give them a call and try to see if you can use your charm and get them to approve it, because it made sense to us. Like, if you had a failed septic system, instead of going through the expense of putting a new septic system in, just seal off the tank, make it a tight tank, and pump it until
Well,
sewer's available. But
I mean, we did that many times in the past, and I asked Tom there to get a list of it. I didn't tell you, but I mean, I don't understand that list. We never seen a list like that before.
Yeah, that was overall
Bunch
pumping.
of tight tanks, like down the street from me, there's 2 houses that have tight tanks. And I never see a truck there, but of course, I'm not sitting there looking.
yeah,
But the people there's a lot of them around.
well, if you remember the Senate Craigville Beach bathhouse, they wanted a $500,000 septic system and raise the beach house up and everything else. And I said, why don't we just put a tight tank in? It's like 4 months out of the year, it's bathrooms. There's no sinks, there's
When you
no
said-
kitchens,
when
there's no
you
anything.
did that, I called you to
Right.
congratulate
Right,
you
it
for a
made
great
sense,
idea.
and you saved hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Lord be.
I do that to a lot of people. Don't take it personally.
But that was a great idea. I mean,
Sometimes common sense should rule the day, but unfortunately, our Mass DEP
Oh, that
says,
was great.
nope. So,
Chairman, don't forget letter 2B, you got to vote something on that, postponement or something.
hold on one second. What was that, Tom?
He didn't show up, 2B.
Oh, yeah. Do you want to move them to the next meeting, Sharon? Is that?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
suggest
why don't we
let's
make I would entertain a motion to continue the,
Or to table this.
continue the item to our next meeting in August 22nd.
Second.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to move that to our next meeting. All those in favor? Aye. So just let them know, Sharon, that they got moved, and then maybe just find out what happened. If
Yes.
They wanted to withdraw, whatever, so, yes,
Okay.
go ahead.
Since it's still an open meeting, right?
Sure, yep.
My name's Gordon Starr. My question is, where's the process about tight tanks? I mean, where's that conversation happening? Is Tom meeting with DPW?
DEP, DEP.
DEP. We reached out to Mass DEP through Tom Lee and asked,
I emailed it to my contacts at DEP and find out what is their preference. Would they allow this type of options to be used?
Okay.
When we have a sewer to be connected coming in shortly, like a year or 2 years, okay? But then they come back and say, no, they don't want it.
Will they take 12 months? No?
I mean, it made sense to me to, like, if you had a property, we've had this before us before, where you have a property that is a summer home, and it's 4 bedrooms right on in a nitrogen-sensitive area. And putting a denitrification system is useless because it has to have constant
doesn't use
flow,
it all,
otherwise
yep.
the microbes die and you don't get the reaction.
Yep.
So these are people that are high net worth, that if you tell them, put in a 3,000, 4,000 gallon tight tank and pump it once a week, twice a week, they don't care. They're like, fine. Then you have 0 discharge into our nitrogen sensitive areas.
Yep.
0. They won't do it. They won't approve it. There was a window there where they didn't care, and that's why Craigville got done and a few properties, like they said, got tight tanks in. But then when they started seeing it, they were like, no more tight tanks. We don't want tight tanks.
So it was DEP that said it, not the local.
No. This is
Yeah.
Mass DEP.
Yeah.
Has to be the ones to kind of give us guidance on that because
I'm gonna call Rod Steen.
he's DPW. He's not DEP.
Right.
Oh,
I think
know, but-
Paul, I think I also, I was hearing DPW when it was DEP.
DEP.
But, so where do the Board of Health regulations stand in terms of the CWMP being, when we start hooking up houses? I mean,
Well, as soon as
6 months, I mean,
Yeah.
have you decided on 6 months yet?
no, we haven't. I mean, Mass DEP, Department of Environmental Protection, has a regulation that says if sewer is available in front of your property, you have 6 months to hook up.
So but the problem is if we open up Finney's Lane and we have 300 people, that can't possibly be done in 6 months.
Right.
So-
And that's why they give local boards the ability to grant variances. So we'll give you an extension. So we'll give you an extension, that type of thing. What happened with like Stewart's Creek is you had people that came in and said, I just put a brand new septic system in 3 years ago, and now you're telling me I have to hook up. And so Dr. Miller and the people on the board at that time came up with basically like a formula of how long down the road you could wait to hook up. The problem is when you sit in the meetings with the people that are behind the pro forma and how this is going to pay for itself is they're very nervous. They say, you can't keep granting variances because we need ratepayers, otherwise the system collapses financially. So it's a balancing act of we want to help people with the financial burden of hooking up, but we also understand the system fails without financial ratepayers.
So the sooner we send that message out,
Right.
the better. And we
Right.
say, you've got 6 months to hook up unless you've got a contract that it can be done within a year or something, because we can't, because there's no way on Cape Cod we're going to get 300 houses hooked up in 6 months.
Right.
But if they had a contract for a year or something, but you guys have to decide that, right?
Right, and that's why it's been constantly on the agenda, is that we're working out, we're getting different people to give us their opinions, and like I said, you talk to the financial people, and they're like, the bonds and the financing collapses pretty quickly without ratepayers, so you can't kick it down the road too
Right.
far. The reason why
Yeah.
Stewart's Creek worked financially is because there was a lot of federal and state reimbursement for that project.
Right.
So I think the final town people was like 24% or 25% that we paid for that system. This new system.
So we
doesn't
learned
have-
lessons from Stewart's Creek,
Right.
and we need to
The
apply
lesson
them,
is
but it's,
you can only grant so much, kick the can down the road, but you also
Okay.
have to take into consideration, like you said, logistically, if you've got all these contractors installing the sewer mains, and then all of a sudden you have 300 people come online that have to, logistically, there's not enough installers on Cape Cod
Right.
to hook up all these people. So there's going to be that problem. But, those are the things we're trying to develop a policy where people can at least know where they stand. Like, the foundational policy is going to be you have 6 months because that's what DEP wants.
okay.
But then come to
Yeah.
us and explain to us why you should get more than 6 months. I have a contract. The contractor tells me it's going to be 12 months before he can even get there. Polyethylene pipe, PVC pipe is back ordered months.
So DEP says 6 months, you can't say, I want to sign contract within 6 months?
Well, then that's when it becomes local that we grant the variance.
So I'm looking for something that's more solid sooner. Does that make sense? I don't want 300 people coming in here looking for variances.
No, nor do we, and that's why
Yeah.
we want to try and develop the policy
So if-
that says, you know.
If you've got a
if
signed
it's-
contract for
Right.
so that it will be done within a year,
Right,
you don't have to come to us.
right. If
I've
the-
been suggesting, rather than 6 months, a year, but
Right.
myself personally, as a suggested to be more reasonable for financial, for the family's financial reasons, not for the town, the person that needs the time, because we get a lot of requests, people just can't afford it to plan it. They need more time to plan their finances. Some people need to, in this economy, some people, 1 year is not enough. So
Well,
that's why.
to sign a contract, there are countywide programs that will finance it, aren't there? 0% loans?
Well, we've had people come before this board that they still can't afford those monthly payments. You've had, we still have Stewart's Creek people coming to hearings. They can't afford it.
So what are we going to do with those people? We're not going to just let them keep going. So where do you stop it? Do you say at some point, we're going to take it out of your, we'll do a reverse mortgage or something? I don't know how you do this, but
I think
at some point,
They got into it with, those people got into it with the town lawyers and worked a deal. Maybe that, like, there's some deals where they, when the property's sold, then
Right.
the town gets reimbursed.
Well, I think the council also negotiated with the finance department on the bonding and stuff that said, they could do similar to like when you have a private road that wants
Yeah.
to get financed.
Yeah.
Is that everybody can, the town will finance you. So let's say you get your monthly sewer bill,
yeah.
and then you'll have an additional finance of, you borrowed the money from the town basically to hook up, meaning the town financed the
do the
hookup,
road.
and then you pay
can't-
it back
yeah,
over
I
time
can't-
with the bill.
I can't answer that question, because I think we started with that conversation, and then the county developed a program, the Aqua Fund, and I think the town is sort of saying, let the county do it.
Yeah, so they try and, but,
Yeah.
then the county has also said, there's no way we'll have enough money for everybody that's going to be coming online over the next 30 years.
The monthly payments were very low,
Very low?
very low.
Okay,
Like,
yeah.
I'm not even sure they were, I think it was less than $100 a month.
So,
So, I mean, one would assume.
But there was,
But I
Yeah.
like what you're saying about, can we put a regulation in place where we just accept a signed contract by 6 months and make.
Give
that
them a year,
policy
yeah.
forward, so that we don't have to hear all those cases.
well, that's what we're trying to do is
Yeah.
develop so then we can adopt a regulation that says,
Yeah.
the DEP says this, but town of Barnstable residents have 12 months.
Right, we're a small geographic
Right,
area.
and if
We're
you
not-
need more than 12 months, then you have to apply for a variance, and then you have to come in and show hardship, and you have to prove hardship, and you have to,
Yeah, we
When-
don't have that many people in this area that do that.
When that Stewart's Creek policy was evolved, I voted against it.
Are you giving us a warning?
yeah, no, Miss Dr. Can, what would you recommend now?
Well, recommended that the 6 months, and then they need to get a variance or something or other. But this was a blanket thing
Yeah,
that said that if you were a multimillionaire and you just had your system put in, you could have 10 or 15 years to hook to the sewer, which was crazy. So it was, it was like basically what's going on here.
yeah.
I don't think they said it that
Okay.
exact way, but.
So so then there's the other whole thing with like the Strawberry Hill condos, where people are coming in saying sewer won't be here for, we're not sure whether it's going to be 8 years.
Well, they're in
or
phase
2
one.
years or 10 years, yeah, but
And
it could be
that's-
8 years.
It
But
could
we
be
don't know.
Could be 2 years,
Yeah.
because we don't know. So,
Yeah,
until.
but you gave them 2 years, right? Is that
We
what
gave
you-
them 2 years, variance on it. And again, and that's going to be a costly property that's going to have to, if we make them hook up this, if we make them put in a new septic system, they're going to say, well, then I want to be deferred from hooking up to sewer for 10 years. Because we have to put in, a you know,
But they're
system.
only, that only included a small number.
It was
of
one
cities.
pit out of
Yeah,
four systems.
one leaching,
Yeah.
yeah.
There's only one pit, of the four systems
How
over there
that
that's
ever got
failing.
approved in the first place.
Okay, but there should be, there should be some kind of limit on how, or we should have somebody from DPW here saying, give me within 2 or 3 months when it's going to be there. You know, I know it's tough, but a little better
Well, like I
than
said, you know,
7 or 8 years.
They're 6 months behind schedule right now
Yeah,
with phase one. So,
Probably 6
it
years.
just seems like we need more update information when those things happen. So my concern is that you're talking about the regulations, but I don't hear the conversation happening.
I don't understand what you're saying.
Like, you're going to do 6, I mean,
We haven't adopted a regulation yet.
but who's writing the regulation? And where's the conversation going that's developing the regulation? That's
I
my
did
question.
draft a written policy, but the town attorney got involved at a meeting we had earlier. This summer, was it in the spring?
The spring,
Well, yeah.
yeah.
And they're suggesting that you hold off and work with all the, like, town council and DPW. They work with everybody to come up with the regulation. And that's
Yeah,
what.
we've had several meetings
Okay,
with
but
the.
it still sounds at some point, Tom said that we should get everybody in the same room at the same time.
We have.
Yeah.
And they've asked us to hold off while they figure out what they want to do on their end.
So who is they? The town attorneys?
Town attorneys, DPW, town council representatives that was there.
I just seen it coming soon, you know, and because we're going to be hooking up by next spring, so, and the more information we give our citizens ahead of time, the better, so.
Yeah, thank you so much.
I'm glad it's moving forward, thank you.
Okay. I would entertain a motion to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We adjourn. Thank you so much, everyone.